I focused my equity assignment on a topic that is close to my heart as an educator and mother. Language has the power to uplift or tear down how we perceive and address others, mainly those who have a long history of being marginalized and oppressed, can either be empowering or degrading. What would change if instead of creating a single story about people with disabilities, they were viewed as people first? Authors Dana Dunn and Erin Andrews point out that using labels ignores individuality and promotes stereotyping, and in regards to people with disabilities, the disability becomes the essential aspect of their identities. Person-first language is an inclusive way to address people with disabilities, as well as any group of people. In a study with patients in a recovery treatment, researchers found that when nurses used person-first language when treating their patients, the recovery process was quicker and smoother. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie stated in her TED Talk, "The danger of a single story." That is how to create a single story. Show a people as one thing, only one thing, over and over again, and that is what they become. The consequence of the single story is this: it robs people of dignity. It is degrading when someone with a disability is not addressed as a person first, as it diminishes their individuality. People without disabilities often assume people with disabilities have other impairments as well. This disability spread phenomenon can begin to be reversed through person-first language. But should all people with disabilities be addressed in first-person language? Some may believe that making a point to use person-first language is making a point that people with disabilities are different, thus contributing even more to existing barriers. Others may find the sentence structure of using person-first language draws attention to the disability. And some believe that using the term person with a disability is signifying that the disability is not of importance or is perceived negatively. Many people with disabilities, including those in the deaf and autistic communities, take pride in their disabilities and do not separate them from who they are as people, so may prefer identity-first language. While these perspectives are valid, all people need to feel respected and included. As an undergrad student many years ago, a lesson from a professor will always remain with me. Not only was she a special education teacher, but the mother of a child with Down syndrome. She passionately explained, as educators, we need to always remember to address our students as people first. They are not special needs students, disabled students, IEP students, or Down syndrome students. They are more than that. They are students with special needs, students with IEPs, students with Down syndrome, students with all different abilities. As the mother of a child with a rare genetic syndrome, person-first language is much more personal. I notice the difference whenever I hear my daughter addressed by her disabilities first. When I refer to her using person-first language, I feel as if I am allowing others to see her whole, to see her abilities and her potential. This simple reversal can change everything. People with disabilities are marginalized when addressed using identity-first language. Helena Halmari stated, "Language that has been used to describe people with disabilities is traditionally disempowering and oppressive. Our identity as humans is more important than whatever identity comes next." Person-first language reaches beyond people with disabilities. When we identify others using labels, we are putting them in a box that can feel suffocating. Labels become a person's whole identity rather than a fraction of their identity. When we view others as people first, we allow ourselves to see everyone in a similar light, as individuals first. Adichie continues, "The single story creates stereotypes, and the problem with stereotypes is that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story. Single stories emphasize how we are different rather than how we are similar. If differences become the focal point of our language, inclusion and equality cannot exist." The Model Code of Ethics for Educators states that educators have their students' best interest in mind when protecting students from any practice that harms or has the potential to harm students, communicating with students in a clear, respectful, and culturally sensitive manner, and demonstrating a commitment to equality, equity, and inclusion, as well as respecting and accommodating diversity. The code also states that educators demonstrate equity through respecting the dignity, worth, and uniqueness of each individual student, including but not limited to gender, religion, age, disability, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and culture. As educators, using person-first language supports these principles. Educators must be the leaders in equity not only in the classroom but in society. Students and families of all races, cultures, backgrounds, religions, genders, and abilities enter classrooms expecting to be treated equitably so that they can develop and succeed in school and life. In a person-first movement, the President's Committee on Mental Retardation was replaced with a more inclusive term, the President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities. Most people, including school staff, are oblivious when they are not using person-first language and are unaware of the damage that can be caused by not doing so. Educators must model and commit to equality, equity, inclusion, and respect. Labels are too often used to define others when the focus instead should be on who the person is. Holly Hoffman stated, "Labels and identities are complex. By using person-first language, you are promoting an inclusive environment that acknowledges differences but does not define people by them." When it comes to personal identity, there is not a clear solution on the correct way to address others. Whether or not person-first language is used, empowering groups of individuals who have been oppressed for most of history is always the answer, empowering them with the ability to choose for themselves, to be seen and heard. Person-first language allows stereotypes to diminish and gives the marginalized the opportunity to be seen. As Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie stated so eloquently, stories have been used to dispossess and to malign, but stories can also be used to empower and to humanize. Person-first language allows for more than just one story to be told, but many beautiful stories.